Hello and welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB, and I'm checking in on my free-to-play account. Today we're going to be tuning the Izzet League deck, but before we jump right into the deck, we're going to open some packs that we have hanging out since the last time we played, some things I've earned from the daily rewards and weekly rewards, as well as the end of season ladder rewards, which was only one pack because we didn't really rank up, but we'll be pushing that in the future. But we're going to open these packs just in case the cards help us out a little bit on our journey. We're also going to check out this mastery tree. So if we go into our mastery tree, we can place an orb, and the orb will give us a cosmetic. I'll take winged words today, I guess. I don't know if it really matters. I'm not, like, we don't actually get the card. It even says not a card. So it's just a little something shiny to play with. Now let's crack these packs and see if there's anything good for our decks. I don't see anything in this specific list, but we just added a mythic because of the wildcard counter, which is nice. Oh, 2 mythics. We're gonna have to craft another deck soon. Then looking around, Brineborn Cutthroat can be good for a blue style deck. The rest of these aren't particularly impressive. Brought Back I just made a video with, but it was about bringing back Teferis. It's not particularly exciting for most of you. Next up, Chandra, the Awakened Inferno. That is a big mythic open with a lot of power that might very well go in our Izzet deck. We'll see. All right, looking at Planar Cleansing. Destroy everything. I love spells like this. My main channel, I made a video called The End of the World, which was all about epic spells like Planar Cleansing and Star of Extinction. Alright, Season of Growth number 4, which can be really good for the green deck. I don't think we had copy number 4. And another Wakeroot Elemental, which is something that doesn't really... It's fine, but it's no Nissa, let me just put it that way. Nissa for 5 mana can do a lot more. All right, let's get in and work on tuning Izzet League. If you haven't watched many of my videos, this is a tuning video. We're going to focus on one specific deck and making it better. The ladder videos, that's something else where we focus on competitive play on the ladder. And crafting is where we craft individual decks from our free-to-play account. So, TLC, tuning, ladder, crafting. All right. What have we got here? We've got the colors blue and we got the colors red. What I like to do first is go through and add all the cards I think I may want to use, but probably the very first thing you should do is get a feel for what the guild does. As somebody who's played Magic for a while and played a lot of decks over the years, including all kinds of Izzet decks, I'm pretty familiar with what the Izzet League is going to be about. They're going to be about getting extra bonuses off your spells. Some cards, like Electrostatic Field, deal 1 damage when you play a spell. Runaway Steamkin gains a counter when you play a spell. A red spell specifically. Goblin Electromancer makes your spells cost less to cast. Radical Idea and Direct Current and Chemist's Insight have Jump Start, so you can play them multiple times. The more time you play spells, the more times you gain the advantage. The cheaper those spells, the more often you can play them. Cards like Firemind's Research, Wee Dragonauts, Erratic Cyclops, Crackling Drake, Murmuring Mystic, Niv Mizzet, and Thousand Year Storm, they all get better the more spells you play. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for spells, in particular, kind of these fill spells where they have an effect, they draw a card, like cantrips, they're also called, or cycles, they're called in some other games. A great example is Opt. You play this, you scry when you draw a card. Well, that's just fine most of the time if you're looking for something specific. But if you're playing an Izzet League deck with a bunch of spell triggers, then you also get extra added bonuses each time you play the spell. So an Opt fits in this deck perfectly. And that's what we're going to be looking for. Spells that are cheap, draw cards and have effects, and we're going to look for cards that have benefits based on spells. Terramander costs 1 less for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard, and you can adapt it to be a 5/5, so it can be a very cheap 5/5 if you have a lot of spells in your graveyard. This card, whether or not it's good, is going to depend on how many spells end up in our deck, so we'll add it for now. Spectral Sailor is a cheap creature, but we're looking more for cheap spells. Unsummon is a good cheap spell and can have a positive tempo, which can make a big deal. Bouncing the opponent's creature is a very good play when you're trying to set up, because the main problem with this deck is that it can be slow getting all of its triggers to go. So I probably want a few unsummons. I'm not sure how many. Another great thing about unsummon is against a creatureless control deck, which you do play against sometimes, you can return your own cards to your hand. It's like a protection. Anticipate is another spell that might be useful, but Radical Idea is frankly a lot better in this style of deck because you can play it twice. However, we may end up wanting an Anticipate, maybe more than one. I like to switch to this view for looking because I can see more of the cards and see them a little bit better. Looking at more of this, Mission Briefing is an interesting one, but it's honestly a bit mana intensive, and the double blue is kind of tricky because you need triple blue to play a blue card with it, so I'm going to leave out the Mission Briefing. I found it too clunky and too slow for this type of deck. I like it better in an extremely long game control deck. This deck usually is going to try to win in the mid game. It'll deal with the opponent's things for a few times, gain advantage from playing a bunch of spells, and then create like a giant Crackling Drake or Niv Mizzet to win. So we could play the Planeswalkers, but they're not spells. So once again, we're kind of narrow in the kind of cards we're looking for. I could add another Chemist's Insight. This might be too expensive for the deck, but it is right in the vein of what we want to do, so I'll get it added. Again, these are creatures. This is a Planeswalker. We really wanted more cheap spells, and I don't know if we'll have enough, to be honest. Although in red, we get a whole bunch of burn spells, which are also cheap, and with the added ability of the bonuses get very interesting. So we can have a fourth Shock. That's not too bad. Burning Prophet is a card that fits into this perfect. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, +1/+0, and Scry, can be a very strong card in a deck like this. Now, one thing is we look at how many blue spells we have, we may not want Runaway Steamkin, so Burning Prophet as an alternative to that can be very useful. If we end up with some Chandra Planeswalkers, I wouldn't be opposed to Chandra's Triumph, but I don't want it now. When looking at whether or not to run Dreadhorde Arcanist, you should look at the number of spells in your deck that are 1 mana, because you can't anticipate the Arcanist being worth much more. Right now we have 7, which isn't terrible for the Arcanist. Now, if we used a few of our common and uncommon wild cards and crafted 4 Ops, although Opt is rotating, so maybe we don't want to. But if we crafted up some unsummoned Shocks and things like that, then the Dreadhorde Arcanist starts to look a lot better. But in this build, I don't think it's right. Having a 4th Lava Coil might be a great idea. There's almost certainly going to be plenty of creatures to remove a good amount of time, and having cheap spells to deal with them is nice. The Chandra Spitfire can be helpful in a deck like this, but since we're using Wee Dragonauts and Crackling Drake already, I don't think that we need the Spitfire. Light Up the Stage can be interesting in a deck like this when we're doing face damage, and it draws extra cards, which is nice. There are some issues with Light Up the Stage, but right now we don't have a lot of other cheap card drawers. We have Chemist's Insights and 2 Radical Ideas, and we want 8 or more card drawers that are pretty low price in a deck like this, so I'm going to grab Light Up the Stage. I don't know if I'll run all of them, we'll see. Skewer the Critics, though, is a bit too... I really don't want to ever end up paying full prices or working too hard for the spectacle on this when we already have a good amount of removal, so I'm going to leave that one alone. A second Erratic Cyclops would be interesting. Whenever you play an instant or sorcery +X/+O, and it is an 08, this card is usually something I cut from my decks because Murmuring Mystic and Crackling Drake are better. So I don't think I'm going to run the Cyclops, as fun as that card can be. I do want to try out this Chandra, and even though it's not a spell, it can be a big late game finisher. We already have 2 good ones in the deck in Niv Mizzet and Thousand Year Storm, but I do think I want to play the Chandra. We just got it. We got to try it. And then we have Finale of Promise. It lets you cast 1 instant and or 1 sorcery from the graveyard. So if you have a lot of cheap instants and sorceries, this card can be very good. And as I look around, I see that we have Anticipate, Radical Idea, Unsummon, Shock, Lava Coil. I think we can definitely give Finale of Promise a try. It might be a good reason to run more Anticipates as well. So this deck actually does get bonuses from cards being in the graveyard. If we wanted to stray from our guild, we could run Discovery, which can help us fill the graveyard. I think I like Anticipate better, plus we get to stay with our guild, at least for the moment. We only have 2 Crackling Drakes. If this were a deck with 4 Crackling Drakes and some Arclight Phoenix, Discovery would make a lot more sense. Right now it makes only a little bit of sense, whereas Anticipate can be kind of flashback and gets you a similar type effect, I guess, but at instant speed. I don't know. That's kind of close. That's pretty close. I'm not really sure if I'm supposed to run the Discoveries or the Anticipates. I'll stick with Anticipate. I have a fondness for the card, and I like keeping my guild affiliation clean. Here's a Temple of Epiphany. And also, as we've done many times, let's cut some Izzet guild gates and get in some Swift Water Cliffs, because the 1 life in free-to-play could matter. I'm going to stick to running 8 tap lands. So a mana base like this, it's been working okay. Of course, it's not as good as if you go out and get your shock lands that enter the battlefield untapped for 2 life, but that's a lot of rare wild cards for your free-to-play boy. All right, so we'll finish there, and we're looking at 74 cards. We have 22 creatures, which is a lot. We probably want to be at 18 to 16, something like this in a deck like this, because we do need a lot of spells, and we'll have a lot of spells to help us find the creatures. We only have 1 Planeswalker, which I think is where we want to be. Let's go through and try to do some trimming. So what cards stand out to me the most? The Runaway Steamkin only triggers off red spells, so I have plenty of blue spells I want to cast, so cutting the Steamkin makes sense. League Guild Mage, as sweet as this card might read, it's not very good and dies rather easily. It's not a very compelling board presence, so it's going to be cut. I really don't like Direct Current. It's a jumpstart spell. You would think it would play with a lot of things for this deck, but it's getting the axe today. We Dragonauts, though, is a pretty good card. I am cutting the Cyclops. I'm going to keep the Crackling Drakes and Murmuring Mystics. Those are the 5 drops that I really do want to play and then get lots of bonuses from casting spells. I like Expansion Explosion, Finale Promise. I like Thousand Year Storm. And I like Niv Mizzet. And I like the Chandra. So we could roll out with 69 cards, but how about no? I think the Terramander, we're not aggressive enough, and this deck is a little bit too slow for that, so you can go. I'm going to cut Invert Invent. I think it's a fun card, but a pretty slow card. The ability to search for an instant and or a sorcery card late is good, but we have to make the game get that far, and this card can sit in your hand a lot. Another card I'm considering cutting is the Electrostatic Field. Getting those extra 1 damage pokes off of the field can be nice, but I don't think they're particularly good here. I'm also going to cut the Light Up the Stage. Now that we've trimmed the field and some of our other early cards, Light Up the Stage isn't going to be cheap very often, and if it's not cheap, it's not nearly as useful. What we still have is a Firemind's Research, a Burning Prophet, and some Dragonauts in the 2 spot, as well as Augur Bolus, which is nice. It's very likely to hit cards here, so it's not bad. So with 1 more trim to go, now we want to just kind of look at the curve, and when I'm looking at my curve, I sometimes need to move things around because of where they put themselves. Like Finale Promise is actually an X spell, so it usually gets played for much more mana. We could cut the Anticipate. How's our removal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not great. I mean, so we're definitely not trimming removal here. The Firemind's Research may have to help with that. Maybe 3 Dragonauts is just more than we really need. Although we don't have many good 2-drops otherwise, but a 1/3 for 3 is not particularly exciting. It is kind of a racing card. I might even be better just trimming that all together and having unsummons. Unsummons have unique ways to get value. They can return an Augur Bolus and replay it. They can return Crackling Drake and replay it. They can protect Niv Mizzet. So I actually think I'm going to raise the unsummon count. Something like this. Another card we might have wanted to play in a deck like this is Negate. just to counter planeswalkers, which will be really hard for our deck to deal with. It also plays well with Electromancer. You can play Electromancer for 2 on turn 3 and have a negate open, or whatever nonsense the opponent wants to get up to. We do tap out a good amount with cards like Murmuring Mystic and Crackling Drake, Niv-Mizzet, but I think negate might just be worth it. If negate's worth it, what gets cut? It takes our deck in a more controlling, aggressive direction, or less aggressive direction. If you know me, if you watch my videos, you know I like control. And it makes me wonder if we really want Thousand Year Storm, but this card is so much fun, I don't think I can resist it. So now when I look at the list, the cards that stand out as a little funky, maybe not 4 unsummons. How about 3? Because now we have some negates to kind of fill the unsummon save my creature role. And maybe the Burning Prophet, maybe this just isn't for you, is it? No, we're not that aggressive anymore. All right, so this is the deck I'm going to roll with. The idea will be to shoot down creatures for the first several turns and gain some card advantage. Play a card like Murmuring Mystic, Crackling Drakes around turn 4 and 5. And if the opponent doesn't deal with those, they start to spiral out of control. If the opponent spends their resources dealing with them, then we go over the top with a Thousand Year Storm, a Chandra the Awakened Inferno, or Niv-Mizzet. Find something like that, play something too strong for them to deal with. All right, that's the deck's plan. Let's go play some games. No blue mana. It's a mulligan? All right, so I think what we're putting away here is the Storm. We could also put away the Expansion Explosion because it will be a long time before it's very useful, but the same can be said for the Storm. I don't like putting Storm on the bottom. It's one of my favorite cards, but alas, we'll have to wait to see the Thousand Year Storm in action. I think that putting a 6-drop on the bottom is what makes sense in the situation. At least Expansion can copy a Lava Coil to kill 2 things. And we've got a Siren Storm Tamer. I'm not going to try to kill this until the opponent wants to put a Curious Obsession on the Storm Tamer, so let's lead with the Augur and try to find cheap removal spells and negates. There's an Unsummon. That's very good. Very good against a Curious Obsession type deck. If the opponent is, of course, playing Curious Obsession, the 1-mana enchantment that makes them draw a card every time they hit me. Favorable Winds. Alright, so it's a Flyers deck. They'll try to create a lot of flying creatures that are cheap and beat me to death with them. Fun. Alright, well, we definitely attack our opponent with the Augur. The Murmuring Mystic can be very helpful here, but we need to hit our lands to make it happen. I'm going to go for the Augur and try to find more card draw that can help us get our Murmuring Mystic online. And another Unsummon is fine. We did put 2 lands on the bottom, which is too bad. And we'll probably use this Unsummon if our opponent plays something like an Eagle. The Empyrean Eagle pumps all the other Flyers. That's a good Unsummon target. These 1-mana creatures are not very good Unsummon targets. It's getting better, though. This is now a 3/3. So if you're going to Unsummon, you can either Unsummon to prevent damage or to gain tempo. So I'll take this 3, and then on end step, we can go for this Unsummon, which can make the opponent have to recast this on their following turn, which will leave it with Summoning Sickness. Now, this part's interesting. Our opponent could have a flash 3/3 flyer because of the favorable winds. I'm going to attack anyway. Okay, they don't have it. That's very good. Unfortunately, we don't have much else to do with our turn, except for we could unsummon our own Augur and try to find another spell. That is not great. But I do need to hit another land very soon. So the opponent knows about this unsummon. I think we'll say go. I think using the unsummon on the opponent makes a lot more sense when they have 2 favorable wins. And here's an elite guard mage. It's going to be a very large body, gain 3 life, and draw a card. It's a bit of a problem and not something I really want to unsummon. So let's pass. Because every time they play it, they gain 3 more life and draw a card. I think we attack with our augurs. If the opponent blocks one, the lava coil can get rid of the elite guard mage. And they take the block. Huh. Well, maybe they didn't think about the lava coil, or maybe they don't care because they already got good value out of their guard mage. And being stuck on mana is really starting to hurt us. If we had had the Murmuring Mystic on turn 4, this game could be swinging in our direction, as we could just make more and more blockers for the opponent's flyers. Fortunately, that doesn't appear to be the way it's going to go. 2 Siren Storm Tamers, wow. So we could bounce one of these. What I think Yeah, I think we bounce one. And then what we want to do here is draw the land so we can expansion the lava coil and kill 2. So we definitely leave the vitality here so we can shoot it with the coil. There's the land. And we need to make this play now. I would much rather get the Murmuring Mystic out and then make flyers, but we need to make it now because Siren Storm Tamer can counter the original lava coil if our opponent ever has a mana available, which is really bad. So copy, shoot them both away. And we're in this terrible position where all of our opponent's creatures are going to be cheap, huge, and we have to kill them. It's going to be really, really bad. I really would have loved to replay this game, but had the mana for the Murmuring Mystic early enough. Holy cow. Holy cow, you guys. A mere 8 damage next turn. No problem. We'll get the Mystic down because if we draw more spells, we can start blocking. But all of the anthems. The hugest 1/1s you've ever seen. Need a lot of spells. Shock. Shock doesn't do it. But we can live for a turn. And why not? We didn't come here just to die. Do you think the opponent will be too afraid to block the Augur? Can we sneak out a point of damage? Let's see if we can bluff a point of damage. We can, even with the Storm Tamers. Okay. So we'll say go. The opponent with the preemptive good game, don't do that. It's scummy. I don't enjoy it. I don't know. People can argue about whether or not it's scummy. What I can tell you for sure is I don't enjoy it. Please never preemptively good game people. It's just bad practice. All right, before blockers, we will make another bird with our Anticipate. I guess, well, gaining the life probably won't matter, whereas having the land available might. We might need all our mana available to make enough blockers. Down to 1. How many spells can we run off in a turn? Lava Coil. Unfortunately, Lava Coil gets countered by a Storm Tamer if the opponent's intelligent. Well, we have to draw more cards. There's a birdie. And 1 birdie, 2 birdie. Shock doesn't do anything. So there's not much we can do now. As predicted, we're pretty much dead. So on our way. All right, if our opponent is playing aggressively, we have a lot of ways to slow them down. We'll need to draw a good mid-game card, and then maybe we have a chance. Let's lead with the Cliffs because we may not be able to use our mana this turn otherwise. And a Leafkin Druid. Well, it's a bit too big. It's a bit too big for our shocks, unfortunately. So here's a Lava Coil. We've got to slow the opponent down. Letting them ramp up into giant things can be really bad. Llanowar Elf. Another ramp creature, but very shockable. Bond of Flourishing, digging deeper into the deck. Another Leafkin Druid. The opponent definitely on some form of ramp strategy, trying to cast really large creatures early in the game. So the more of their ramp creatures we take away, the better, to buy time. Now, as the game gets later, it's not as important to take the creatures away because our opponent has a lot of lands anyway. But here we see that they're stuck on 3 lands. So it might be worth this unsummon. And I think it is going to be worth this unsummon just to make the opponent do this again. And buy more time to set up our deck. Get Chandra the Awakened Inferno online to take out their large threat when it comes time to battle it. It sets us behind on cards. You can see the opponent now has more cards in hand than we do. But it gives us the time we might need to battle with their large things. So I'm going to main phase this, meaning I'm going to cast it now instead of cast it at instant speed, just to see what we draw. It might be a tapped land. And if we drew a tapped land there, we would want to play the tapped land instead of the untapped land to make it possible to Chandra next turn. So there's a time and place to draw your card's main phase, especially when it keeps our negate available. Beast Whisperer, whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. So maybe it's not a full ramp deck with giant threats. Maybe it's a deck that's just trying to make a lot of mana and cast a lot of creatures to get value out of the Beast Whisperer. I'm debating discarding the Shock. We really want to hit our land so we can Chandra these. So I think we discard the Shock. It doesn't kill either of the creatures that our opponent's presenting. Land? Untapped? No. Alright. Alright. So there's a few plays we could make. We could get our Crackling Drake online, which draws 1 extra card as a 5/4. We can also play our Electromancer, and then use a Chemister's Insight to draw 2. That also holds up negate during our opponent's turn. Or we could main phase the Insight and try to play a land this turn. If there's a blue one available, then we still hold up the negate. I don't think negate is a high priority against the opponent, but they might run Nissa. And 5-mana Nissa is a high priority target. So I think the right play is going to be to put out the Electromancer and pass, holding up the Chemister's Insight to potentially draw 2, but just maybe, in case of a Nissa, we have a counter. Alright. Well, the bad news is the opponent gets value, they draw a card. The good news is this still dies to Chandra if we find our 6th land, and it's untapped. This draws another card, but also dies to Chandra. And now this makes 2 mana, because there are 4 creatures on the battlefield. Chandra can overcome all this value. It can kill all of these by herself. And that's where we want to be. The opponent saw us discard a Shock. It's kind of a curious idea if they wish to attack. They choose not to. They're trying to play it safe with Beast Whisperer, and that makes sense. It appears to be the key card in their strategy right now. So there's our untapped lands. A few more than we needed. And here's the Awakened Inferno. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to our Electromancer, and our opponent gets to keep their Leafkin Druid because it's an elemental. On the bright side, it's an 0/3, so it's not very threatening. If our opponent has a way to make it threatening, oh my. Oh my. How big are you? 6? Not big enough. I'm sweating. See it? 8/8 trample. So, another tough choice, because I'd love to keep my Chandra alive. It's a very powerful card. We definitely plus the Chandra. Well, maybe not. What if we draw into a Lava Coil? That's still not enough. I think that we might want to fire off this Insight to try to draw Unsummon. Maybe that's too narrow. Or maybe I'm supposed to play this Drake and set up to race. Because the opponent's going to attack... The Mammoth is going to attack the Chandra. This is going to start attacking over the top. It can become as strong as a Mammoth. This is where Planeswalkers can be very powerful. Plus we make this emblem.
No pressure.
It's going to damage the opponent every turn. If the opponent takes their turn attacking the Chandra, then racing with the Crackling Drake starts to look really good. Unfortunately, we've drawn so many land. Let's play this one now. It enters the battlefield tapped. And we shoot the opponent for 1. I predict the opponent will attack the Chandra now with the Mammoth. What we need is for them not to have another huge creature. It's not going our way today, that's for sure. That is for sure. It is not going our way today. Well, they have a Prey Upon to try to kill the Drake. At least we have a negate here. We can counter that. But I don't think it's gonna help. It's hard to see a combination of draws that will save us now. Facing all that.
I can always do better next time.
Expansion can copy something like an unsummon if we draw it. Which could, I mean, that can buy us some time. Let's discard a land. Draw 2. Finale. There is an unsummon in the graveyard. There is also a Lava Coil. Right now, Lava Coil doesn't do too much, unfortunately. I could play the Augur. These all have trample, and it's 22 power. Jesus. I could play the Augur and try to find an unsummon. But it feels like I'm supposed to unsummon Lava Coil here. Unfortunately, I can't also expansion it. I'm 1 mana short of a lot of what we need to do. It's a very tough situation. I feel like if I can untap next turn, I'll be in a better position. But here, I think we just have to fire this off for 2. I have to get rid of this, though, as well. Do I take 20 and hit my opponent once? Is that the play? All right. Here's the unsummon. Here's the coil. Hey. Coil the Leafkin Druid. Unsummon the Cavalier of Thorns, because I have to hit with this Drake. I have to try to kill the opponent. It's the only way. It's crazy. I mean, dealing 14 next turn looks impossible, but say I can augur into an unsummon, maybe I can bounce multiple things. The opponent says good game. Do they have a pump spell on top of everything that's already gone wrong for us? Jesus! Nothing good about it, and man, what's with the preemptive good games? People have really taken it to me. And they're showing their deck. It just feels like terrible sportsmanship from my day. But it might be a personal thing. You can leave me a comment if you disagree. But you should at least try to understand that other people don't enjoy that kind of a GG, especially when you steamroll them like that. 2 unsummons. A finale that's not particularly good, and an opt. It's an ugly little hand, but I think we have to keep it. I think by now you're starting to learn that the Izzet deck can be very underpowered, and that it needs a lot to go right to win. So I feel like this is one of those hands that I have no idea what's coming, and I need a lot to work out. I'll take the Anticipate, though. I still don't know what I'm working on, but at least we'll start putting it all together. Do I get the Cliffs online, or do I have Anticipate open? Let's get the red mana online. That way we can play Fire Mines possibly into an unsummon next turn. Alright, we'll get you online. There's nothing to unsummon though, so I'll keep developing the mana. Goblin Warchief. Well, the worst target for unsummon is anything with haste, and that's exactly what our opponent has. Let's try this Anticipate. We really want to get rid of this now if we can. I think Electromancer is really bad in the matchup, so I'm going to take the Insight instead. And I do think we unsummon this. We don't want our opponent to get a turn with the cost reduction ability of the Warchief. It makes all other goblins cost 1 less, which can lead to just our opponent having a giant board. So we're going to do it again. Feels weird, man. Trust me, I don't love it myself. All right, is there any reason to main phase this? I don't think so. What are we at? It's 5 counters and you do 5 damage to a target. It's 2 counters to draw a card, so we'll say go. We're almost at that 5 counter mark, and the Finale of Promise, if we find a sorcery, can count as 3 spells. All right, let's let the opponent enter the attack step. Let's draw 2 and see if we find a shock. Still no sorcery either. You're a little late, but you're better late than never. All right, let's get out the land. Let's get out Murmuring Mystic to start making some birds. Let's get this thing dead. I'm confident my opponent has expensive goblins in hand because they've been on this 4 mana. We've been kind of messing around with this War Chief. All right. Yep, here comes some gobos. Has haste. So the opponent gets to make 2 more goblins when it attacks. We can take the block though. Crackling Drake. So we probably want to kill this Kingpin. I still don't have a sorcery to flash back, so I'm trying to hold out to draw a sorcery to go with the Finale. A Lava Coil would be wonderful. Let's lead with the Drake because we just might draw another removal spell we want to play. Nope. Just land. Just land. Alright, so shoot that down. Block, block. No need to attack. Do we shoot it down now? I think we just shoot it now. If the opponent has some kind of a Goblin Pump spell, and they would want to play it on their turn. Okay. Okay. Just hasn't been close today, has it? Alright. We keep fighting. Let's get rid of the War Chief. Card really beat us up. The Lava Coil off the top would be really nice. Would be really nice. I guess I could Chemisters and try to draw into one. Right now the Finale of Promise gets back a shock, which isn't nearly good enough. So let's get some triggers. There's a coil. We fight the good fight. All right. Got some blockers. We've got a Finale of Promise. Can do a lot of triggers and remove 2 things next turn. Or dig for more cards. Okay. We're trying to hang in there. That will kill our birds. So here we could chump the Veteran, but I just don't think we'll live. We die to a Lightning Strike if we block this way, but I don't think we have a choice. I think we have to. Yep. See, I think if we block there to stay alive one more turn, quite honestly, we can't win without the Mystic anyway. Wow. Okay, we're back to try some different things. I really like the control builds. I find them challenging, but I've been destroyed so much today that I think I have to accept, and this has been true for most of this format, that control is very bad. So in the interest of showing you a deck that might actually work in red and blue, I honestly don't think red and blue has the tools to control the board. And, you know, today has proven that true. The matchups haven't been terrible, but I've been pretty much beaten down again and again without the right tools to answer what the opponent can do. So I think I have to accept at some level that this is what Magic is right now. Get them dead. Get them dead. You just have to get them dead. So we're trying a version here with some different kind of incentives for the spells. We have Electrostatic Field back into the mix with Burning Prophet. We Dragonauts back into the mix. And we're playing Light Up the Stage and Skewer the Critics, trying to do some damage to the opponent and then use these cards to get ahead and burn away and get them dead. So That will be interesting and possibly fun. We'll find out. And anyway, we still have the card draw because we want to get we want to activate our spell reliant cards, and we want to make sure we have enough fuel to keep the damage coming. And we still have a Niv Mizzet on top along with an expansion. Cut has been the 1,000-Year Storm, which maybe that should still be here. The Chandra the Awakened Inferno has also been cut, as that's more of a controlling planeswalker. But both could still make the... Both could, in theory, make the deck. And to be honest, I want them in the deck. I want them in the deck very much. I don't want to live in a world where playing these is wrong. Especially as an intro deck. As a free-to-play deck, it feels like this is the place where if I'm ever going to play these cards, this is the kind of thing I should be doing. So I can trim back a couple of the skewer the critics. We only have 12 creatures and a lot of spells. Let's go try out this version. Wow, this hand is terribly slow with no removal. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. It's kind of a mystery hand. We've got Light Up the Stage. If our opponent plays a slow deck or we draw a removal spell, it's much, much better. And our opponent with 2 tap lands, and we would draw the removal spell. So even if they had a creature here, we'd be doing something against it. Tap land, tap land, tap land. Here is a Pollenbright Druid, which has Proliferate, but there's nothing to proliferate. So instead, it's a 2/2. Now, here's an interesting option where we could light up the stage to set up for the future. Since our opponent's not doing much, I'm going to Lava Coil now and just keep the board at parity. If the board's empty and we get to Chemist's Insight and continue to set up our 1,000-Year Storm, that feels good. Moo. This Planeswalker is very strong. I have 2 of them in my free-to-play blue deck and in my blue-white deck, so you may have seen them on the channel, but she has +2, a creature loses flying, -2/-0. She has -3, make a 4/4. The good news about the 4/4 is we can kill it if the opponent doesn't have a counterspell available. So I still think the play for the turn is going to be to use the Chemist's Insight. Try to stock up our hand. I think that our opponent is going to make a 4/4. Hopefully the Lava Coil will kill it. No, the opponent's going to keep plussing. The ultimate says islands you control have tap to draw a card. The opponent doesn't control any islands. This is interesting. It's an interesting situation. It's very normal to make the 4/4. The opponent, maybe because they saw the other Lava Coil, assume I have another. So with Niv Mizzet and 1,000-Year Storm ready to go, we want to get to 6 mana. Let's play the Temple and scry for that land. It's a tapped land. I'm going to be aggressive and bottom this, and then I'm going to try to draw an untapped land with the Insight, so that we can play either 1,000-Year Storm or Niv next turn. And we'll pass the turn. There's an island. Our opponent does have islands in their deck. Proliferate, draw a card. Sure. A Planeswalker Proliferate deck is starting to look like between the Druid and the Plan. Contentious Plan. So now your Planeswalker is up to 9. The idea here clearly is to ultimate Planeswalkers. And the opponent does have an island now, so there is value in ultimating or -8ing Moo. Keep the counter shields, even as a bluff, up until the very end of the turn. Hesitation there, too. The opponent does appear to have something. Something that can mess with us. So, we can play the field, then skewer the Moo to keep the ultimate away. The opponent can probably interact with it in some way. I'm just not sure what they can do. We could also play the field and play Light Up the Stage and hope to hit a land so we can skewer this. That's the highest reward play, but it's also super risky. Regardless, let's lead with the field. Resolves. Let's fire off a skewer. Let's at least try to slow this Sky Dancer down. Does the opponent run a negate here? No.
Try my patience.
All right. Life from the cliff. Trying to make some time to get the Storm or the Niv online. And here she'll lie. Hexproof now for the Planeswalker, but a target for Lava Coil that will also set up these light up the stages using our field.
Sky is my domain.
And I think that's the play. I really don't want this to ultimate, and we can take our time. It's okay. We have a lot of card advantage. Okay, I'm going to play this light up the stage. I really want the trigger on my Fire Mines research. So I'm going to play the research now. Okay, we now have a land to play for the turn. We could keep digging and try to find a way to damage this, to damage Moo, but I think at this point, the opponent has 2 islands. They might draw some extra cards, but we have a lot of like value in our deck going right now too. So I think that this is a turn where we play out the Electromancer and say go. Here's the proliferation. The opponent tapped an island. I think if they were playing perfectly, they'd want to tap one of these lands so that they could tap this to draw a card, but maybe they have another play. Okay, another Druid. So now their islands, including Hollowed Fountain, which is an island, have tap to draw a card if the opponent wishes. Niv can come down and deal a damage to get rid of this, plus draw some extra cards, and that's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet. So I think the right sequencing is going to be Niv, then light up the stage. No, wait. The opponent won't have taken damage yet. So it has to be Niv, then Op, then light up the stage. So we may as well play the land first. We could also play the Thousand Year Storm, but I think the longer we wait on that, the better it gets. That we can use it the turn it enters the battlefield. All right, let's go. Trigger, trigger, trigger. The value is coming. So we do a damage for each card that we draw. Let's make sure that this dies. But I think if I'm doing my math right, I'll also be able to kill the Druid. Don't need another land at this point. Got another waiting in hand, and now another waiting in hand. And let's light this stage, baby. Trigger, trigger, trigger. Saving up resources on the research for later. Nice to have the Fire Mines research right there with the Fire Mind. You know, flavor. Then we put 2 cards aside in exile for next turn. Hollowed Fountain draws a card. Ooh, Expansion Explosion revealed for next turn. Plus we get 2 points in from the Electromancer. Opponent has to deal with the Niv. Niv can run away with a game all on your own. 100%. Drawing a card every time we play a spell, dealing a damage every time we draw a card. It's Magistrate's Scepter. Remove 3 charge counters, take an extra turn. So the trick is to get a charge counter on the Scepter and then proliferate and start taking extra turns. Unfortunately, the opponent doesn't have something here. I think I'm going to kill them. Yeah, and I don't think I even need to play Thousand Year Storm to do it as much as I like Thousand Year Storm. Thousand Year Storm plus light up the stage plus shock gives me 2 shocks, but I think I can get them no matter what. Plus we get this up to where it deals 5. We're in a beautiful position. Let's start with lighting up the stage. A minor Niv nombo is that we don't draw the cards from light up the stage, we exile them, but it still works out. And that's going to be a scoop. 2 Electromancers. If we drew a Chemister's Insight, this hand would be amazing. I think we're going to try it. Just kind of take an aggressive angle and hope we don't flood out. Gain that life from the cliffs. Here we go. Good old mono red. Probably. And Electromance. At least the opponent has an awkward attack here. They have to move the Electromancer first, which as mono red they often do. Ooh, they don't. So you're telling me there's a chance. Look at this. Look at this hand. So if the opponent doesn't block, you get to shock this and light up the stage. It's really good. We might take a hit from the spitter, but I'll accept that. We could also just skewer and play another Electromancer. That's not terrible either. Or we could just shock and save the skewer. I think those lines are even better than lighting up the stage here. We do have 6 drops in our deck, and if you reveal those with light up the stage too early, you don't get to use them. Yeah, this makes our opponent's turn really awkward, and we want to save the skewer in case of a Chandra Spitfire, which has 3 toughness. Bingo. Alright, so this costs 1 mana. That's pretty great. Plus we can get out the Firemind's Research, which is a wonderful top deck. And at this point, I can stay very aggressive, but I kind of like making my opponent throw away their spitter if they want Spectacle for their own light up the stage. It's one of those tough strategic points. At the same time, I don't even want them to burn my Electromancers. Oh. Do I want the damage, or do I want to make their light up the stage awkward? Can also make their Chandra awkward. Although if they have a Chandra, it's just going to get attacked. So Chandra's already awkward. If they had a light up the stage, would they have played this any different? I don't think so. So I can expect that they have one. So yeah, let's make their light up the stage more awkward. Cavalcade. They still have to remove the blocker, though. They don't. So here comes the damage. And I would guess I can block here, and then there will be a light up the stage. But I made it cost them their spitter, was the idea. The whole idea of leaving the creature back. So it's nice to see it potentially work out. Oh, okay, they just wanted to be able to cast this skewer. I don't know if I agree with that turn. I think if I were in their shoes, I'd just skewer... Yeah, if I were in their shoes, I'd skewer the untapped one and attack and save the Cavalcade, but can't do it for them. All right, let's go ahead and get our stage lit. We'll do that before we opt, just to see what we need to try to opt into based on what's revealed. All right, nothing too crazy. We can draw a card. We can also opt now, possibly hitting a creature. I'll take it. It's a very powerful card. All right, we'll end the turn here. Hold up the shock. Probably use the research to draw because we want to play this as soon as possible. The red deck usually has a very hard time removing things with 5 toughness, and so far this game they've had trouble removing things with 2 toughness. Here comes Scampering Scorcher. That's a real pain with the Cavalcade. It can race. We may as well use the shock to prevent a little bit of damage by taking this out. Now, it doesn't matter if we take this out or take out the tokens. I don't think they have a way to get it back, but they might run Thunderkin Awakener, which can bring the Scorcher back from the graveyard. So we'll target a token instead of the Scorcher itself. And I will draw this card. Might as well do it now. The opponent's committed all their resources for the turn. Those tapped lands, they get ya. All right, let's try this Crackling Drake. Gain 1 life. Do we keep attacking? I don't think so. At this point, if the opponent wants to attack to get Calamity triggers, we want to tax it. Getting the 2 damage in looks really juicy, but we have the Niv. If the Niv lives, we will win. So now we just want to make sure we live long enough. Our opponent might have sequences with like multiple Scorchers, trying to do as much damage to us as possible. It might be able to outrace us. That's a good. That's another good reason to hold back, to eat up those war boss triggers. Makes a hasty 1/1 goblin. Again, we'll take out the tokens, not the Scorcher itself. The card Thunderkin Awakener brings elementals back from the graveyard, and some versions of this deck run it. Usually only one, but I have seen it. Electrostatic Field off the top. I think that this is an easy Niv Mizzet. If it survives a turn, it can start picking off all the things our opponent does. No attacks. Again, now the longer the game takes, the better things get for us. We just have to keep our opponent from punking us out, you might say. Riot. When it attacks, a creature can't block. Oh no. Okay, this is going to be a very dangerous turn. The opponent chooses to keep back the War Boss. The Clamor Shaman will say that Niv can't block, probably. No, says the Drake can't block. I guess they're hoping I'll be afraid to block with Niv, but obviously in this situation I need to block with Niv. So this should die. Otherwise the bodies are the same. Blocking here, the opponent might throw the damage at the Electromancer, but I still think that this is the block. All right. Big turn coming. Can we kill the opponent now? That's what we have to think about. So if we go Niv face, that's 13. If we use Firemind's Research to send another point face after drawing the card, that's 12. We almost have a lethal attack. We just need to draw a spell. I think we take that chance. Draw a card. Draw any spell. That will do. Once this goes to the graveyard, it will pump the Crackling Drake, so we don't need any more buffs to win the game. We could have played the Electrostatic Field first. Sequencing there might have been important, right? Then we could have had an extra damage off the light up the stage. I definitely would have done that if I weren't absolutely certain I had the math right to have lethal without it. But just something to pay attention for. All right. Electromance, Shock, Coil, maybe a 1,000-Year Storm. Seems nice. Let's open on the Guild Gate. Get those turns with the tap land out of the way. Ah, Freebooter. It's an annoying card. It'll take one of these, but then we'll kill it and get the other back. Taking the Shock is smart because it makes us use the Lava Coil on the Freebooter. The question is, do we want to? We could just play out the Electromancer. If the opponent has another Freebooter to take the Lava Coil, that's super annoying. But then we still have an Electromancer attacking and lighting up the stage to find another removal spell. So I think we run out the Electromancer. The 1/2 can't effectively block it. If the opponent takes their turn removing it, we still get the Lava Coil to get back the Shock. It's interesting. And if we sneak some damage in, we get to light up the stage sooner. Okay. Maybe we just play the Dragonauts here. Let's try attacking and see what our opponent does. Easy. Alright, let's run out the Dragonauts. Maybe we can just out-tempo the opponent. This gets buffed whenever we play a spell, so playing a Lava Coil would be very nice. What does the opponent target? They pick the Electromancer. Not sure that's going to turn out okay for them. Let's get rid of you. I think it's the easy target because we get the Shock back, and now the opponent can't block the Dragonauts, and they're at 3/3. And now we get to light the stage. Try to set up our land drops to get us to our 1,000-Year Storm. Wow, 2 Chemist's Insights isn't very ideal. But we can cast 1 next turn. Ouch. So our opponent spamming Chupacabras, which leave they take out any creature, they leave a body behind. They're strong. So this turn, if we don't cast the Chemist's Insights, we lose them. So for sure, I'm going to cast 1 of them. I don't want to give up that value. And I can take a beating. I can take a few hits. I'm really stunned we didn't hit a land. Opponent's trying to play the black deck with just all the 2-for-1s. Kite Sail takes a card. This draws a card. The good news is the bodies aren't very impressive. Playcrafter is going to make me discard a card. So I think the worst card I have here is actually the Electromancer. Nothing else really needs the reduction, and we just need to get these creatures out of the way. And the opponent's deck is full of things that kill these. So I think the Electromancer is the pick. We'll play the Prophet. Well, I could main phase the Radical Idea to try to draw a land. That hasn't worked well so far. And now we have these shocks available. Plus we can pump the Prophet to profitably block the Chupas. The opponent's going all in anyway, so we block here. Go to damage. And now we can shock away the Plaguecrafter and pump the Prophet. Opponent's got something. Moment of Craving. Okay. So this becomes an 0-1. Let's see, if we play 2 spells, it becomes a 2-1. But I think I'd like to keep my Prophet around. But we could trade with the whole board. But then what do? I guess I draw some cards, right? That's not bad. So this goes back to 0, then back to 1. Never mind. I'm an idiot. So we definitely want to take this out to keep our Burning Prophet. There's a land. I'll take it. Now we're taking 5. We could use the shock now, but we won't get any value out of the Burning Prophet with it. But I think that staying alive is important enough to make it worth it. Because we're leaving our Scry on top anyway. We don't get to maybe put a card to the bottom that we didn't otherwise want. So we can hold back, hold off the Chupa. We can sit here and use our Radical Idea, or flash back our Chemister's Insight perhaps, discarding the Radical Idea. We could also discard Skewer. Here we go again. Might be another Moment of Craving. Yeah, make them have it. Always make them have it. It's kind of a weird attack, isn't it? Maybe the opponent plans to get these out of the graveyard, but they already have a Chupa there. Yeah, I think I'm discarding Skewer. I think I just want more cards, and I don't think they have to be burn spells. I'm not on the front foot, so the Skewer's ability to, like, Spectacle isn't going to be active easily. Well, I found all the land. Dead Chupa. Villas. Whoa. That's a problem. That's a big problem. I don't know if Thousand Year Storm can save me from Villas. 8 mana, but there's a Lava Coil. We can copy the Lava Coil. It can get rid of Villas, but the opponent's going to draw a frickin' truckload of cards. Man, if we had had this one turn earlier, if we hadn't whiffed on land for that one turn, this game would be different. This whole game would be different. Do you attack? I think you do. It's 8-8. Of course you attack. I mean, you can do this now, you can do this later. However you want to go. Draw a land, please. I would appreciate it. Give me a chance. Give your boy a chance. Mono black control, just trying to get 8 mana the good old honest way and play Villas. I love it. There was a, like, I would love if all Magic were like this. But I'm really kind of offended that I drew so many cards and my opponent got to 8 lands before I did. It's one of those things where that shouldn't happen that way in Magic. Okay, we're gonna need a lot of Lava Coils. Okay, that Plaguecrafter I think gives me a little bit of a chance. So, we Radical Idea, charge up the Thousand Year Storm. We flash back the Radical Idea, keep charging up the Storm. I'm more likely to draw a Shock than an Opt. I don't think it really matters which one I discard. But we get some extra draws here. All that land was so late. Okay. So the skewer right now goes for 3. That's not nearly enough, so. You. And then we go to 1. And then what do we need to draw? Chemister's Insight? Maybe that would get me there? I don't know. So close. Need a really good top deck, though. If it's not a draw spell, like, it kind of has to be a draw spell. And we're down. We don't have many left. It's not a draw spell. But the opponent didn't play a creature. So if we just remove this, do I have a chance? Okay. I'm done. You have like a Direfleet Daredevil? Okay. Like that's a Flash 2/2. That would be so perfect right now. It would be funny. Massacre Girl. Sure. Now I've got to deal with that somehow. Field can't block it. Massacre Girl has Menace. This I do feel was a good game. So I've been railing about people who good game me when they're the one winning and just smashing my face. This was a good back and forth. I'm the one who's going to lose. I think it's completely legit if the loser wants to throw a good game because they genuinely felt that way, and then the feels are good. I hope you enjoyed this video with tuning Izzet League. I think, yeah, as much as I love a blue-red control deck, I think you gotta stay aggressive. The games were more fun, the deck was more exciting, everything about the interactions felt better when we kept the aggressive slant to it. So, I apologize if you only watched the first half of this video, although that would mean you're not here to hear my apology. I hope you stayed till the end. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you to my sponsors, CoolstuffInc, Esports Gold, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.